make the introductions. So tonight we're delighted to have, where'd he go? He's on here somewhere. Deric Williams, and he's going to present to us the most complex mysteries of the universe regarding USA jobs and how to apply for government jobs using USAJobs. Deric, do you want to introduce a little bit about yourself and tell us kind of how you got to that vaulted position of knowledge, and then go ahead and launch into your topic? Oh, I bet Deric stepped away.
I've been in this position for 4 years now. I started off as a DVOP in Minneapolis right after I transitioned out of the Army in 2014. Right now, my focus is on helping homeless veterans gain employment and training opportunities. Do quite a bit of work with Zach Johnson and the DVOPs over in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and the rest of the MACV staff. So I'm here just to talk for a few minutes about a presentation that I give about once a month on USAJobs. Just as a preface, a lot of this information, some of it is going to be changing here in the next 6 months. The Office of Personnel Management is restructuring the way they do USAJobs and how documents are handled in the system itself. I'll be going to some training on that coming up here pretty soon. It's in the testing phase now. Once they've worked out all the bugs, they'll begin pushing out training, and then I'll revamp my presentation accordingly. The presentation itself it's a 2-hour presentation. So Alan, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to spend the whole 2 hours today, or if we're just looking at giving some overview, answer a couple questions, and then invite you all out to my class on Thursday. So just let me know what you need, Alan, and I'll go from there.
Hey, Deric, Alan had to step away for a second, unless he's back. So okay. For tonight, I say let's just go with kind of the overview, answer questions, and then the deep dive can be set, for your individual meeting, and we can just make sure that everybody's tracking when it is and where.
Okay. Deric, and I don't mean to interrupt you. For everybody in the chat, in the chat, I actually posted the monthly webinars, and if you are interested in attending Deric's on Thursday with us, please contact Bob Anderson. His information will be on the bottom of that webinar sheet, and let him know that you want to join for that. I highly recommend it. Deric does a phenomenal job. I learned something new every time. This will be my third go around listening to it this week.
All right. Appreciate it, Zach. I'm glad you posted that in the chat. Saved me one more step. So basically, just to give you an overview of what the workshop is all about. Again, it's a 2-hour workshop. We routinely go over that time slot, but as long as somebody's there to listen and to ask questions, I'll do the presentation for as long as needed. Basically, we start from creating your USAJobs profile, what that looks like. When I created the workshop, I went in and I applied to a position that was open at the Minneapolis VA. As I went through all the steps from creating the profile, reading the job announcement, uploading documentation, and the entire application process, I took screenshots and I jotted down notes on the presentation. And then ideally, you sit through the presentation, and then at the end you get the slide deck, and then you can go in and you can follow it step by step, and you should be successful in applying for jobs on USAJobs. It can get kind of, the information can get kind of muddy. Just reading the announcement and knowing when you qualify for a GS6 or a GS7, or what the 52 weeks of specialized experience, what all that means. So We try to do, we spend quite a bit of time on explaining that and what it actually means and what words or verbiage you can ignore and still be successful in applying for those positions. Spend a lot of time on the different types of documents that you'll see, explaining those documents and providing you with examples. For example, the Schedule A letter, what a Schedule A letter is, who it applies to, and how to obtain one. We also get into the OF 306, which is a form that I get a lot of questions about. So we'll do a deep dive into that. And then we generally just answer questions that you have about the entire process. And although I do work with a very specific client base, I do make myself available to anybody that has questions about USA Jobs. Just to give some more information about employment services at the VA, we have a 12-person employment team at the Minneapolis VA. We have 3 psychologists on staff that will administer vocational testing and do feedback sessions. And then we have vocational rehabilitation counselors. Each of us are assigned to a different population. So while I myself work with veterans that are homeless or at risk of homelessness, I have a coworker that works with folks with spinal cord injuries, one that works with folks with persistent and serious mental illness. And we all attend different trainings to help us better serve our specific populations. But we also consult with each other on those jobs and those application processes. Each of us is very intimately familiar with the federal hiring process. So in the event that someone needs more long-term help with applying for those jobs that I can't answer, over a phone call or through a 30-minute session, then I can refer you to my counterparts at the Minneapolis VA. But back to the workshop, again, we spend a lot of time really just answering your questions. And that's where a majority of that time comes from, is answering questions that you may have about the process up to the interview. So if you have the chance, just come check it out. The next workshop will be this Thursday, the 18th, from 1 to 3-ish. Again, it'll go as long as you're in, as long as you're logged in, I'll be logged in and we'll be available to answering those questions. But for our purposes today, if you've got any questions about USA Jobs now, I can answer those and hopefully see you on Thursday.
Hey, Deric, this is Patrick. I wanted to ask if does USA Jobs use an ATS system to filter out?
To the best of my knowledge, USA Jobs does not use an ATS. A majority of folks that I work with, they want to apply at Minneapolis VA. And from reports from our HR reps, when you apply to a position, someone at HR actually reviews your resume and your supporting documents to make sure you're qualified. Now, I can't speak for all the other federal agencies, but to the best of my knowledge, they do not use that ATS.
All right, thanks.
So I got a question, Deric. So most of the positions I've applied for through USA Jobs are under the Army, I suppose, department in Minneapolis, because I'm trying to stay in the Army Reserve, and some of them or a handful of them require membership in the Army Reserve, and then you're a DA civilian with this position. The last few months, what I've been finding, and I checked yesterday, is a lot of the Army ones are department or Corps of Engineer jobs out of their St. Paul office, which are great if you're an engineer, but what do you recommend? Are there avenues to get into the Corps of Engineer as a non-engineer trained person?
I have not, so I know what you're referring to. I've not seen any non-engineer positions posted by the Corps of Engineers. I wish they did a better job of outreach so that we know who those recruiters are and that we had access to them. But I've never had anyone apply to a job at the Corps of Engineers through USA Jobs. Just specifically from my population and then the population I previously worked with, I've never had anyone that was interested in those positions. I don't have any come across my inbox either. So,
included engineers. So you've never placed any engineers who want to work for the Corps of Engineers?
No, I have not. Not at all. I've never had anybody want to apply for those. So all the other federal agencies, you know, Department of Agriculture, TSA, all of those, I've had placements there, just never at the Corps of Engineers.
All right.
So,
Hey, this is Melanie Nelson. I just want to share that we do have a former guard member who works for the Army Corps of Engineers in public affairs. And he says it's a fantastic place to work. So I do know that there's other jobs. I can't remember how he found his job, but it is a good place to work.
what I can do is I can reach out to them. I'm pretty sure I can find the PAO over there. I can reach out to him and then shoot that information over to Alan so that he can forward it on to you, Aaron.
Well, so actually I talked to a guy over there, and I'd have to look up his name a couple months ago. But yeah, I mean, it was all good and well, but he's pretty much said, yeah, you got to wait till a non-engineer job pops up on USA Jobs and apply for it, and that's really the only way in the door.
Oh, okay. So and I haven't, like, I see the Corps of Engineer positions. I just haven't seen anything that was non-engineer, like support or admin. I haven't seen any of those.
Hey, Deric, it's Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for asking. So I wasn't on one of your USA Jobs webinars just that one time, and I'm pretty sure I already asked you this question, maybe not. Okay, so, and I know that one of my veterans that I'm working with right now is in transition, and I believe he had some questions for you. All right, so here it is. So for transitioning active duty veterans who are not scheduled to separate or retire, not for a few months, say they're within the 6-month window of retiring or separating. So, I mean, they're in a difficult spot because technically, they're not a veteran yet. So they can't really claim veterans preference, right? Or can they?
They technically can. I mean, they once they meet the federal definition of a veteran, they're a veteran even though they are still actively in, right? So what you can do, or you can have this veteran do, or service member do, is have his or her commander write a letter stating that he's or she is scheduled to transition on this date, that they meet the definition of a veteran, and that the rest of the documentation will be submitted upon separation. So a lot of the positions that'll post, it'll ask if you are expected to be separating, and during conversations with HR, you can give them a tentative start date. So the good thing of that's probably one of the only good times. That's one of the only good points where it's the federal hiring process can take at least 2 months. So that's one of the things that he or she'll have working in his favor. Just from the date of application, through the interview, through the background check, to being given a start date, it's about 2 months, depending on the position. That's for housekeeping, providers, all of them are a minimum of 2 months.
Yeah, okay, so you said minimum. So what would be like? Do you know what would be the average hiring process? The average?
So when you're going, if you're not going through a special hiring authority, like a direct appointment, then 2 months is it. Because from the date the closing of the job, it's about a month for them to review resumes, conduct interviews, and make an offer. Then from there is the background check, which is very similar to the one you'll do when you're in the military. You fill out the SF-86 or the EQIPs, and then you wait for that to come back. And depending on where you fall in the pay cycle, it'll be another 2 weeks. So you're looking at 2 months.
See, that's really surprising, because I've always read that the entire hiring process takes 6 to 18 months. So you're saying that is no longer true?
That, in most cases, that is not true.
Okay.
Again, it depends on the position and the agency. Now, if he's applying to one of those alphabet agencies, then yeah, it could take up to 18 months. But traditionally for the hospital, the TSA, the Food and Drug Administration, those are going to be 2 months, because the background check isn't as extensive as it is for the FBI or the CIA or all those other folks.
So, and I hate to hog up the questions, but I just have one more question for you. So if someone is not scheduled to retire, let's say, so it's March, April, May, June, July, it's like not scheduled to retire for another 5 months. Let's say that they're on track to retire like in August. And if let's say that they apply for a job like today, for example, but they're not retiring until August. So, I mean, I don't know, how would that work? Like if they were selected for an interview and then offered the job, I mean, how would that work with the federal government? If they know somebody, they've already decided that they want to make a job offer to an individual, they want that person. They want that person. I mean, would they be willing to wait until that person retired, or no? They just move on to the next candidate, or what?
Yep. So Jeremy just posted in the group chat too that you can get a statement of service saying that you served honorably and you're on track to get an honorable discharge. But just like any other position, if you're the ideal candidate and they want to hire you, then you can set your start date.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is when I'll be available, and then that's in negotiating phase. That's in the negotiation phase.
Sure.
So like my earliest date of availability is this date. They either accept it or they don't. But just like in universal applications, if you are the ideal candidate, then they're willing to work with you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, this is Jeremy. Hey, they still have that 6 month after you retire that you got to wait to get a federal job or whatever, but unless you're a direct hire. Because I know when I retired, just like 2.5 months ago or whatever, I couldn't get a federal job unless it was a direct hire that I had to wait to get a federal job.
Were you guard or active or?
I was active duty Navy, so.
I've never heard of that one. I can check into it.
Yeah, that's
I can ask the rest of my team if they've seen it.
That was a big thing with in my field in electronics that they were trying to
work with contracts or any of that.
Say again?
You work with contracting agencies?
No, I'm just saying because I didn't even go that route, but a lot of my buddies that are retired at the same time tried to, and they like, no, you gotta wait 6 months, and then they were talking about getting rid of it, and or that back in was it 3 years ago or whatever. I can't remember. But yes, but so I wouldn't apply for any USA jobs until you're 3 months out anyway. And because you're not even going to get looked in the system. So you're
not even going to get looked at all?
No. From
I hope you're kidding or speaking for yourself.
I'm not kidding. I just went through this. All my buddies are retired December 31st, right? They started applying for jobs at 6 months out. Yeah. And they didn't even get even remotely looked at. But when they apply for that same job, 60 to 90 days out, they got a thing because they got looked at more. So it's I mean, because they're gonna look at.
So is that the only?
Say again?
Is that the only thing that changed is the amount of time they waited? Like they didn't
Yep.
change the resume,
No,
eligibility, none of that?
nope, they just
Okay.
updated it 90 days out.
I haven't heard of that.
But this
I'll
is
look
also
into
in
it.
California and Norfolk, so yeah.
Okay. And did they stay in the same area that they discharged from, or did they move?
They stayed.
Okay.
Like
So my thought is that if you stayed and they're working in that same job, I'd see it as potentially a conflict of interest is why they didn't get hired. If I'm from Minneapolis, I served in Minneapolis, and I'm getting out and I'm staying in Minneapolis, a lot of those civilian jobs will pay a little bit more than what you'll get when you're in uniform. So that could be a conflict of interest and require a waiting period. But for somebody, I've not seen or heard of that. It may be job or industry specific, but I'm going to look into that and see what I can dig up.
Deric, if you're active duty, do you get any consideration in determining, vacation time based on years of service?
Yes, you do. So, and this also applies if you leave like a state or another state, county, or city job. What they'll do, as long as you don't, if you outright retire, if you do 20 years and then you separate, or if your DD 214 says that you're retired, you don't get that consideration for vacation. But if you serve 4 years and then you get out, or 14 years and you get out, and you go right into federal service, they'll take those years into consideration when applying your vacation and sick leave earning time. For my example, I retired from the Army on a medical retirement. I did 14 years. They did not count that time as a part of my vacation earning. But because I did 3 years at the state level prior to coming over to the VA, those 3 years of service counted towards my vacation earning. So it's kind of a toss up. But what they do for you, if you're a veteran and you're service connected, and your first year of employment at the federal level, you get 140 hours of disabled veteran sick leave. So if you have, VA appointments that you need to attend, or if it's an appointment related to, your service connected injuries or disabilities, then that time doesn't come out of your general sick leave pot. It comes out of that disabled veterans sick leave, which will allow you, a year to build up your regular sick leave time before you have to start using that.
Oh, good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How do you translate military rank into GS civilian levels?
There is a good website, and it's federalpay.org. They have a chart, and it's broken down by branch, that says if you are an E7 in the Army, you should apply for, GS 5 and 6 positions. It's a good jumping point for figuring out what level you want to apply for, but it does not take into consideration, any college coursework or college degree. It also doesn't take into consideration your additional duties or military training. It's just strictly based off the rank you held while you were in. But federalpay.org is an excellent website. You can look at the GS, the WG, the FS wage scales to see what they compare to your current position. You can also look at the locality pay. Each VA or federal agency as a whole, there is a locality pay. So while a GS, 7 might make $32,000 a year nationwide, they'll apply in the locality pay for Minneapolis, which brings that price or pay rate up. All of that information can be found on federalpay.org. And I use that quite a bit when I'm talking with folks about, pay, especially if they want to relocate out of state or, even from Minneapolis to St. Cloud, VA, the pay rate is different. So.
All right, thanks.
Hey, Deric, Troy Hill here. I appreciate you doing it, of course. That's awesome. Two things. The one thing is, I think Rebecca is like talking about me completely because everything she said was me here coming up, but it's not, but it was kind of funny. The second thing was I did hear on, when I was going through transition, they did specifically talk about that 6-month waiver. The 6 month, you can't get a federal job. It was for like specific jobs. Contracting was a big one that they brought up, and it's going from like one to the other. And it was that conflict of interest thing. I know there are waivers for it too. I specifically asked that question, but me being a tanker, like I didn't have to worry about that too much. But I just wanted to say that's what they're teaching in the SFL TAP is that there is for specific things.
Yeah. I got you. I just looked it up. I would do some more research on it. But yeah, the conflict of interest piece makes a lot of sense.
Say, I've got a question, Deric. With these jobs I've applied for on USAJobs, they're pretty, unless you know someone, right? So I knew the hiring manager for one of the jobs I applied for. But is there any way to find the hiring manager or a point of contact at that organization, or else I'm just really to have a phone conversation with someone, or you just have to wait your turn in the system and see if they like your resume?
So the only point of contact that's normally listed is the HR point of contact. And that'll be at the very bottom of the announcement. They're really there just to help you, with the process itself. Getting a hold of a hiring manager is going to be hard unless let's say like the housekeeping jobs, right? Those that open up, I know the housekeeping managers, so I can go straight to them, right? But otherwise, for a majority of those positions, it's hard to find out who the hiring manager is unless it specifically states which department they work in. And even then, getting their phone number or email address is generally easy, but getting a phone number to get them on the phone is hard. Like I have a hard time reaching them, and like I've got access to their phone numbers. So it can be kind of difficult, especially if you don't have access to Microsoft Teams through the VA.
Well, to your former comment, so I haven't even seen an HR manager at the bottom of these. You're saying on nearly every job posting, there should be an HR manager listed on the bottom of that job posting?
Yep, on the USAJobs, if you scroll down to the very bottom of the job posting, there is an HR person. So each job is assigned to an HR person. And at the bottom of that job should be a point of contact with at least a phone number. The ones at the VA, they'll have a name, a phone number, and an email address. Some of those do come from a regional recruiting office, and then you get a 1-800 number with a phone tree that you have to deal with. But someone is responsible for each and every posting that is posted. So when I created this slideshow, the point of contact that was listed at the bottom, like I went through the application, I actually applied to the position. And then when I was complete, I dialed the guy who was listed at the bottom of the posting. I dialed his phone number, and I told him what was going on. And he said, yep, just shoot me an email and I'll rescind your application. And then that was it. The only ones that are hard are the ones that divert you to a regional recruiting office.
Aaron, this is Jeremy. one thing you can do is something I did at the beginning, like 6-7 months ago, is like the FBI and CBP and all this good stuff. They do these hiring fairs. So I've made like 3-4 points of contacts with the recruiters and they've emailed me back and forth, you know, do I want a job in electronics technician in Portland, Oregon or whatever, right? I'm like, okay, so you can go to those like career fairs to find out where they're going to be. Just Google wherever you want to work, which agency, and see if they're having career fairs. And then the recruiters will be there to take your resume and then talk to you, especially if they're direct hires.
All right, thanks.
The recruiters are the best way to go. Because then you've got a name and a face and a contact info that you can reach out to. That's a huge part of my job as well, is reaching out to those recruiters. So. Any other questions for me?
Hey, Deric, it's Mike Pavic. So it's interesting when we talk about federal jobs or even state jobs, but particularly federal jobs, a lot of the networking techniques, a lot of the connecting techniques are, and even the resumes and everything else are completely, it's a completely different approach. So question for you, and you kind of talked about in terms of networking, the best way seems to be kind of working with the recruiters if you can track down the contacts. Would that also be in terms of informational interviews to talk to the recruiters, trying to find out more about the positions and the competencies that they're looking for?
Yeah, that'd be my recommendation. Now, if you're looking to apply for a position at Minneapolis and you want an informational interview, just give me a call and I'll track down somebody for you to sit down with. I can't affect a lot outside of the VA. I can't even affect a lot inside the VA, but what I will do is I will find somebody to talk to you. So if you're looking for an informational interview at Minneapolis VA, then just let me know. I can put my contact info in the chat box. I'll do my best to find somebody that's willing to sit down and talk to you. But again, no guarantees. But I'll do my best.
Yeah, but that's huge right there, because the system can feel real impersonal, because the system's really impersonal a lot of times. Yeah, so for everybody who's right now looking for jobs, this is really kind of important, and the resumes themselves and how you apply to these, and Deric deep dives into that in his course. It's a very different approach. And different things that they look for. And this varies from organization, agency to agency. I've been very involved with DoD federal hiring, but that has nothing to do with VA. That has nothing to do with these other agencies. So that brings to the last point that I wanted to ask Deric was, have you seen differences amongst the various agencies? So if I'm going for Corps of Engineers versus the VA versus FBI, have you seen a big variance in hiring practices and approaches that would help candidates out?
Yep. I've seen a few. Again, I work with a very specific population, and so I've never had anyone apply to the FBI or CIA or any of those. But as far as just the general federal positions, the VA, Food and Drug Administration, Fish and Wildlife Services, they're starting to lean a lot more towards the non-competitive application process, which, works out. It's a lot easier than the USAJobs application. It's a lot more streamlined. I've been getting a few more emails that use that process, which is basically a resume, Schedule A letter, and then it goes directly to the hiring manager for review. The Minneapolis VA keeps a list. They maintain a list, and they change it out every 6 months of folks that are interested in. They have I can add that to the chat too, but it's called the non-competitive application packet. So basically you indicate on this packet what type of job you're interested in. You include a copy of your resume, your DD-214, and your VA service connection letter or Schedule A letter if you're not service connected. That stays on file at the Minneapolis VA for 6 months, and then you have to resubmit it. So basically what happens is a hiring manager will come to HR and say, hey, I need to post for this new position. HR will ask if they prefer to hire through Schedule A or non-competitive appointment. If that HR or if that hiring manager says yes, then they're provided with a list of folks that are interested in that position, including their resume, which is they're given the resume for folks that are interested in that position. They can review that resume, they can contact that individual, and they can hire them, you know, without posting on USA Jobs or dealing with that whole debacle, and they can hire them on the spot. I'm actually going, as we're talking here now, I'm talking with a hiring manager from the APHIS, and he's reviewing a Schedule A packet that I submitted to him a couple hours ago to potentially hire one of my veterans. So it's a lot easier process. It's a lot shorter time frame wise. So they're starting to lean a little bit more towards that because, you know, we all have so many hours of work in a week and we like to maximize that time doing what we actually get paid to do. So I can get Alan, I don't know if you have a distro list, but I can send you the non-competitive application checklist to share with this group if you'd like as well.
Thank you very much, Deric.
And then I've included all of my contact information in the chat box. Oh, never mind. It looks like I just sent it to one person. Hold on. Let me fix that.
Who was the lucky person?
It was Alan.
Alan, you always hog the good information.
Who's the man now?
There you go. Now it should be everybody should be able to see it. So if you got questions or if you want to talk more about it, you can give me a call. Call is the preferred method of contact. The VA, we're not allowed to email veterans through Outlook. We have to use secure messenger. So if you send me an email, at a minimum, put your phone number in there, that way I can call you back. But if you call me, you know, I'll talk to you on the phone. So otherwise, Alan, that's all I got.
All right, very cool. Well, Deric, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. Clearly, it was a appreciated and highly engaged discussion, so everybody was glad to have you here. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking time. Thank you for making it so short too. Oh my God.
Glad to come out.
It was the shortest ever I think you've ever presented anything.
Short and sweet. Thank you, Deric. Every time I listen to you talk, I learn something new. So thank you.
Hey, I got to keep sharing new information. That way you keep coming back.
Keep it fresh. That's right.
So, all right. Well, y'all enjoy. I gotta take off. So
Thanks, Deric.
Thanks, Deric.
If you need anything from me, just give me a call.
Very cool.
Deric.
Thanks. Y'all have a good one.